Hello and welcome to this short tutorial showing you how you can make your small popping box cards. Now if you've made the larger one, basically this is pretty much the same thing, only a little bit smaller, and we've got some lovely cards in front of me here, but if I just hold up the two templates, it'll give you some idea of the difference between the two sizes that we've got. But initially what we're going to do is concentrate on the smaller one and show you how you can make the box out of a single sheet of card. Now to create all the uprights you will need another sheet of card. So technically it's a two-sheet project, but with the single sheet now we make up the box, whereas in the larger one we definitely needed two sheets of paper. I'm going to show you how to fold it basically in this tutorial and cover that. And if you watch the other one, just follow the tutorial for the larger box is the same, just transpose it to the smaller one here. So if you're using the template, watch that video and just follow all the instructions there. However, if you're folding, and that's what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm just going to reach behind me and grab another card and just show to the camera. This is basically the difference in size that we've got. Let's just pick one up there and show you. So that's our original popping box, and you can see that's quite nice, pretty big. And then we've got the smaller one here as well. Okay, so I'm going to just pop this all to one side and then clear the decks and we'll run through the instructions. Now the small trellis arch and edge cutter makes up the small popping box, and if you've brought that set there, you'll have a set of instructions here that look like this. And what I'm going to do now is just transpose that from paper onto the magic of video and film here. So I'm going to be running through exactly what we've got on here to begin with, but those are the dies we're going to use later on to create the lovely trellis edges and lovely scalloped edge to our box. So the first thing you've got to do, there is one measurement and one only to make on this. The rest is just folding, and that's the nice thing. So if you're not into your measuring, bear with me, because all you've got to do is measure in 12 millimeters. Mark it off and you can see that I've done that there. And that's going to be your first line to score. And I'm going to use a scoring tool here, or you could use the back of your craft knife as well. That's something which I often favour. There we go, and you want a good crease into there. If you're finding it a little bit tricky to fold, pop a ruler down up to the edge and you can just pull that to it there, like so. And then a bone folder, if you've got one or anything else, you can just run down and that will create your first edge for you there. The rest of it now means that ruler can go to one side, you don't need it. It's all about the folding. So first one, we're just going to fold this in half up to that point there. So that will just lock into there, come down, and again I'm just going to use my bone folder here to get a nice crease, like so. Open it up, and now this is let's say the tricky one. What I'm going to do on this particular one, because it's hard to see with the camera, it's white here, I'm just going to use my green crayon and I'm just going to draw in that as a reference point so you can see that on the video. So that's now my center line within there. So the next thing to do is just to pull this over, but you're having that hanging over, so if that makes sense, that fold line there on the 12mm just goes beyond. So I just pop that to there, line that up there, and again pop it down and use my bone folder like so. So that bit, if I just pull it back, you can see the 12mm pencil line there, and that's butting up to my original edge. In fact, it's funny, as you do these things, that would be a better way to do it. Fold that back and then just fold that piece over to the line. God, makes life simple. And now tip it upside down, left, right, however you want to work, and just come back with the other part and just fold that to your center line there. And again, with the bone folder, just to put a nice crease into it. This is so you can see where to work with it. Now once you've done that, you've opened it up, you should have a 12mm tab this side, 1, 2, 3, 4 equally spaced panels on there. Again, that's probably, if I just tilt it, you can see that on the camera there. So the next thing to do now is just fold that in half again. So I'm just going to bring that down, line it up here. Now, lots of folding, and there's a couple of techniques you can do. If you want to keep this end panel here without a crease in it so it's upright, just fold 3 of them. And then that will give you a complete, now I went a bit faster, but I put a really tight crease into there, but that won't have a crease in there, that will stay sticking up. If you want to do 4 panels, then just, and I'm going to do 4, so I'm just going to go right the way across here. But if you're a bit clever, you can just come to there and just fold it, and it doesn't crease there as well. That's a technique you might want to look at. So what we do, and I've got my instruction sheet here, so if you're working from that, you'll see it's just exactly the same. Open it up, and now we fold down to this, what is our new long center line there. Can I also say at this stage, don't panic. It doesn't have to be absolutely precise. The nice thing about this card is that it is all about the folds. No measurements really needed apart from that first one there. And there we go, that's our basic paper down. Now what we've got to do is just cut out the bits that we don't need. Again, if you look back at your instructions, that will show you there. But just to show it up on the camera a little bit more easily for you, and to be honest for me as well here, I'm just going to draw in the lines that we've created. So it becomes a little bit more obvious. So we've got those there, and if you remember, we've got our uprights there, and it's quite hard to see this in the studio lights, and I can't get my head in the camera shot, but there we go. Now my pencil lines perhaps a wee bit off down there, but you can get the gist of it. It's 4 equal panels, apart from that one there, 4 equal panels, and those are all the parts there. But what I need to do is cut off the waste. Now, the top part there isn't necessary, and we literally come along to here, down, and then I'm just going to draw in some tabs here that you can cut as well. That said, and that will make the box. You can, if you want to, if you're not sure where you're going to go with the cutting, you could cut this beforehand, but let's just do it as per the instructions, whilst I sound like I'm indecisive. So this will be in red on your instruction sheet, and you should be able to see a little bit more clearly than me. So we're basically going to, well, let's just cut the whole lot off. Let's just come straight across there, like so. And then what we're going to do now is just drop down to there, like that. And I'm just doing this by hand, just creating a little glue tab, just keeps it out of harm's way. Now the next thing to do is cut lines in here, and this just separates the box here. So it's just 4 lines, creates 4 boxes, it's 3 cuts, like so. And there we go. That is our box cut out, ready to go. And if we fold that in half there, fold that in half there, and glue that, pull back here. I haven't actually glued it, but I'm going to hopefully give you an idea of what it looks like so. If I just pinch that together and squeeze it, there we go. That's our box. So it is as simple as that. And now, before you glue it, what you want to do is work with your die here, and we're going to cut. Now, if you look at the other one, it's basically the same instructions, but we're going to run it through the machine slightly differently, because we can actually run the whole thing through. Now, let me just bring up my cutting machine here. I'm going to work on 2 assumptions. You've either got the Sizzix here, or you've got the Big Shot. Now, if you've got the Sizzix, what I would say at this stage, a Big Shot there, or you've got, I said, an electric cutter or something with an A4 platform to it, you're going to be absolutely fine. Now, just to make sure that that does go through, I'm going to take a slither off at the moment, because I'm going to do that anyway. because I think the box is a little bit tall. But if we're cutting with these dies, let's just use that first and then decide how tall you want the box afterwards. But by just taking a slither off from the base there, I should be able to just slide this through the machine. Let's just make sure I've taken enough off there. It's a little bit tight. I think I'm actually sticking on the plate more than anything else. So let me just take that one out because it's a bit bowed. It was stopping it going through. Look, there we go. That's fine. But don't skimp on that because you've got plenty of room on the base to do that. Okay, I'm going to just take a slither off because better safe than sorry. And again, don't worry, you've got more than you need on the base here, but we make it up with these basic folds. Okie dokie, so that's our box, and this is how we're going to work with the dies. I'm going to come back to that in a second because I would like to also show you very, very quickly another method we can use. Now I've got my Hoogie board here, my big green lean scoring machine, and this works brilliantly. And for most of you who perhaps used to using what's called the 777 method with the smaller boxes, can work with that as well. It's just a little bit smaller. The ideal width is actually 72 millimeters, so it's there or thereabouts, and we can still work with our die. That's still going to be fine for you. Now what I've done, and you probably do it yourself, and those of you use this and work with Kay, probably she has her own system. I'm sorry Kay, I never paid attention, you know what I'm like. But what I've done is just mark off using my little bead, stick-on beads, because they'll just flip off if I don't want them on there, and that just gives me an ideal way of doing it. But before I do, I'm just going to pop my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing this time. And I just drop down just a fraction there to make sure I'm in the groove. You'd know how these work, and there we go. So that's my score line there, another one there, that one in there, and my last one there. There we go. And I don't know if they're showing up, but you'll see that's how it works on there. And then you've got your half one here, which is 105. That gives us our long one all the way down the board there. So the last measurement to make on here is the half of this. So it's 105, so it's 52.5. Now these go in 5mm increments, so don't worry. What I've done is I work now from the 15mm line there, and I just move it back almost like halfway between there. That's really where we want to be, and then just come to the 20 here, which gives me my 5, and just run that again down the edge, and that will give me my measurements. So I've got everything that I need on here. My tab's now on that side. I was deliberating where it goes, and just to show up there I put a little mark, so that was my halfway line. Just score it through, and that will just bring you back as you cut it to exactly where we are here. Again, it's a great way of working. So I'll pop this to one side, and now we'll just have a look at how we can use the dies. So we're now ready to use our dies, and I'm going to start off, we've got the edge cutter and the small trellis edge there, and just pop that here onto the top. Now with the template you'll have a scalloped edge to follow. On this one we haven't, and I'm just going to line that up roughly. What we want to do is try and get that equidistant, so actually using your cutting mat lines can be useful here, and hold it down with 2 bits of tape. The outer edge here is the waist side, but it doesn't really matter if you know how you tape it. I'm using a little bit of masking tape and just checking that it's roughly the same either side. You could just pop this one in if you want to and just make sure it's roughly where it is, and it is. Okie dokie. Now this was designed because I'm folding this. I said really it wants to be at 72mm, and you'll notice it's just spilling off at that edge. Now I could actually, I'm just saying that it's going to spill off over the edge, so don't worry. You could just chip it over a little bit to one side, to that one, if you want to, but it really doesn't make much difference. We're trying to get that equal if we can. Let me just pick that one up there and just tack it down into position. So what I would do at this stage is just lift that flap up and have that cutting onto the board so it doesn't cut into that one. As we work away, along, just use the same technique. Keep that level. If you're unsure, just pop that in there. Now this is really forgiving. It doesn't have to be super straight. Okay, so we've done that. So it's back to our cutting machine now. Pop that onto your machine, be it your Big Shot, Grand Caliber, E-embosser. Make sure if you're using the smaller cutting machines here, even your Cuttlebug this will work on, that you've got some plate on that edge there, just so it will cut through, and make sure it's not going to get squashed or as it goes through the machine. Line that up, a little bit more care because we're really at the edge of everything here, and just run that through. You could chop a little bit more off the base. The only reason I'm being so cautious here is because if I just bring this into shot, I want to build these edges here as well. Let me get a box, I can actually lift the flap up and show you. There we go. So we don't want to come down too low, but if I just line that up there, then if you can see, look, I've got at least another 10 millimeters nearly of spare there. Anyway, that's going to just drop off like we've got there, and we're going to just go on and do the same with all the edges here, and I would just work your way along in a straight line. To save time, what I want to do now is come back and just show you this edge here. So we just pop our trellis arch, the small trellis arch in there, roughly match the top there, and you see you've got plenty of gap around that, and just pop it on there. Now if you're using your 777 method, that will be a little bit closer. I'll come back and have a look at that in a moment. I'll just cut some of those panels out, but for now, using the single sheet and just folding, that's just held into position with a little bit of tape. And once again, we're going to offer it up into our machine like so. Make sure that that's nicely lined up on the plate. Don't be afraid to chop a little bit off the base if you need to, as I've mentioned before. And we'll run that through. Remember, the dies like to go through this away so that they cut nicely. There we go. You can see some of the bits just dropping out already. Again, I'll just move that machine out the way and just carefully lift that out. And there we go. Just flick the bits out. And there we go, that's our first panel done. Now you can work your way along. If you want to save time, on the folding method, we could have had this just upright without a crease on it, and I would just then only do 3, and that does save you a little bit of time, to be honest. Okay, so that's that part. I'm just going to build up on the rest of the panel here while we've got it. So to create these lovely patterns as well, you can either put some paper in behind or just have them see-through. All we're going to do now is just mirror what we've done there. So at this point, we're going to just pop it onto there. Give yourself a little bit of space because we've got room at the bottom as well, and hold it in position with a piece of tape. Again, I'm just using low-tack masking tape there, and offer it back into the machine. Now my machine cuts well in the middle, so I'm fairly confident I'm not going to have too much trouble with this, and the die's running in the direction that it wants to go as well. And that's the nice thing with a slightly smaller box. You can just cut really on most machines there. Now I've just run through twice because it is, even though this is a good machine, I'm still cutting in the middle, and a lot of machines don't like to do that, but you can see that we're okay there. And if I just pull that away, and again just flick out the bits, they'll all cut. Just get rid of that pesky one there, and there we go. Please keep these clean. I was working on one of the cards on the show and it just dropped on, and it's on a metallic board, and it's just like, so just keep your work surfaces clean there. One thing to say here, and I'm just trying to show you because I've got all my workings out. When this box folds, you get a decorative edge and a plain one. Really, if that, because I've got the workings out and I want you to see them on the camera where everything's going, in actually what I should do is just flip it over to the reverse side, because that's going to be the decorative one. Does that make sense? As it comes down, you'll see decorative, but that looks a lot plainer than that other side there. But that's something to watch out for if you're using this. Cut all of those one side, then flip it over and work on the other. I just realised that as I'm coming along here. So just to show you the difference, I'll pop one that should be right here, and if that will be covered buy that one anyway if you put something behind it. Now you can see on this one that we can do one or two things. We can line it up again there, or we can drop down. And to line it up, I've got the other video if you want to watch through. We've gone in a lot of detail over that, but just pop it on. You can almost see the pattern, the zigzags appearing within the dots there, and just pop that on there, and that will give you a lovely cut. So again, we'll just run that through the machine. Make sure everything's nice and clean. You haven't got little bits of diamond squares sticking out there. That's not going to get caught as you go through. And just pop you down on the machine there and run it through. And again, I'm towards the edge, but do you know what? Let's just run through twice. It just helps with the cutting. There we go. Let's move that out the way. Take the plate off and just pull that back through there. And there we go. And you can see that's a pretty good cut. That's almost an invisible seam there. Just get rid of those bits and those as well. And I've just got the thinnest, tiniest little whisper of paper in there, which you can just use your craft knife just to cut those out. And it really was just a whisper, so that was pretty good going. But I think you'll agree, you know, you're not really going to see that. You'll not see the join anyway. So that's how we create those panels there. And as I said, once that's done and in position, if you want to do those, and you've gone on and done it all, personally, and it's just me, and this is my personal choice, I would come down about 5-6 mil like that, and to where I've got the line here, and then just chop all of that off, because I think, you know, that looks, I say a bit ugly. It doesn't look ugly, but there's too much space there to my mind. So I would just drop down and just cut all of that off, and then you've got a nicer box, proportionately wise, in my humble opinion. There we go. So we're just going to go on ahead and just basically do the same, and then pop the whole box together. So the key thing to remember here is that once you've done these top ones, flip it over, and then if you're going to use these, cut those. So as it folds down, you get decorative and decorative. You see my first mistake I've more or less covered up. When there's something behind that, you wouldn't know, but really you don't need to make that mistake. So the next cut on this one is obviously to come back and do the tops, and then finish off the rest along there. I've gone on and cut the rest of my box out, and I've actually made a mistake. That's going to happen to all of us. So if I can just show you here, you can see I just went too close on that one there, and yet by the time I was getting to the end, I reckon I was pretty well perfect. I'd lined it up, but that one hadn't quite gone according to plan. Now, one of the two things that have happened, and I just want to mention that to you, because what happened is it moved as I had a single piece of tape holding it down, and that just allowed it to move like that. So always learn from my mistake there, have two pieces, one on either side, and that stops any lateral movement and that happening. Now, because we're going to make up a box, I'm going to turn that into the back panel, so it's not the end of the world. But just to show you here some of the alternatives, if you're struggling doing those, is that you can just do 1/2 as we've got here, and then just use that as a decorative thing stuck down, and I think that looks really nice as well. But anyway, not to worry, it is not the end of the world, but it is annoying. Now, we've made this box up, and if we were doing it without these side panels here, it would all fold, but you can see I've got a problem. That's going to show through there. Now, if that's towards the back of the card, you might say it doesn't really matter, but what you're going to have to do is just trim this down a little bit more. Let's just pop that down to allow it not to show through quite so badly. So I'm just going to take that off there. If you're doing the box and you're just decorating it and you're not actually popping this one on, then it won't be so bad. So that's nearly there. You've got to have enough to make it glue, but you'd be surprised at how strong a small amount will be. So I'm going to go for a much smaller tab like this now. So it's going to show up a wee bit. But if I hadn't have messed up that, it would have been the best back of the box. But I want to show you that, you know, things do go slightly wrong sometimes, and you can put it right. And rather than just say editing it out, you know, it happens. There we go. Now that's pretty much an invisible join. I'm happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. My mistake is at the back, so you'll never really know. I could go on now and put some colours card behind there, etc. Before I do that, a couple of things. First of all, at this point, looking at that, you can see my green line there. I would cut that down. I think that's just too much personally for me. So I mentioned earlier, there's no harm in just taking a wee bit off the base of the box there. I could look at that and say, do you know what? Just go in a little bit further. There's no right or wrong here. It's just personal taste, but I like that. I think there's enough holding it there and it looks good. So next thing, how do we make these panels go into here? Well, in reality, as you can see, it does help to have some card covering, because otherwise all the mechanism's going to just show up. So you are going to have to pop something in there just to hide everything. You can't, unless you want a box that looks lovely and lacy like that. Now, if you're using the template, you'll find that that covers up and creates a natural backing to that. But if not, you are going to have to, as I said, stick a bit of card into there. Okay, how do we do the uprights? Well, here's a little thing that I've come up with here, and I think it works quite well, and you could work it with this and with the template as well. All I've simply done is use my, if I just go back to my measurements here, and I've just used the panels, but instead of cutting them out, I've used the 10mm part at the side. I've used some at the side, so let me just draw that in for you because it's a little bit hard to see. These are my score lines here and here, like so. Okay, and what I've done is I've just cut down and I've just cut in like so, and I've done two little glue panels at the side, and it looks like that. Now the next thing to do is just decorate this one up. So I'm just going to show you how we work it, and then you can use this technique for all of your cutting as well. It works quite well. So all we're going to do is just create like we have on the top of the box for the panel. Just stick that on really wherever you want it to go. There, trying to keep it nice and even across there, into the machine. Now this is a very thin die. It's one of those rare occasions where it can go in lengthways like so, and it will cut nicely on whatever machine that you've got. It'll just slice through there like so. So that's our first cut there. Let me just move that out the way and then come back with our other die, line that up there, equidistance either side, 2 bits of tape, one each side, and that will stop it wobbling. I've low tacked that, I've literally just pulled that off, but there we go. So that will keep that in there and stop hopefully any problems happening. It does prefer to go through sideways. I've got plenty of room for this one, so that's what I'm going to do. Just run it through a couple of times. I could have put it closer to the edge actually, but it'll be all right. Just move that out of the way. Take that off there. And again, just knock out all the bits if they don't drop out initially. So the more times you run it through, if you were to go say 3 or 4, even 5 times, usually find that it just cuts right through. And I think on whatever machine you're using, closer to the edge is better. Try and keep as clean as you can. This is, I know these are messy cards, but try and keep as clean as you can. Now, what we've got is our panel there. I'm a little bit off on the straight, but that doesn't matter. So I'm just going to draw these lines down here so you can see those are my glue tabs there, and that won't be seen anyway. So I'm just going to pop that into there and pop that ready for gluing. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to pop that to one side because I realise I'm coming back to my box here. I could put a colour in there just to show you how this all works. I'm just going to cut one of these panels out and just drop it down into the side of the box on either side, like so, and just glue that. Now I could have a colour in there, and that will just give me something for this to stick onto as it goes in. So I'm going to just Now just really prepare this box ready for sticking the sides in. So we can it's a little bit more preparation when you're using the single fold method. The template will sort of overcome all those problems for you. However, it can be done. It's just a little bit more work. So rather than having a plain white on there, I'm going to go on now and pop some nice coloured card in and around the edge, and then come back and just glue this into position. And then we'll go on and you just use that same technique to create the rest of your card. Now, in order for this, before I make up the box to enable you to put the supports in, what you will need to do is just cover and put in a background paper. Otherwise the supports and all the mechanisms going to be seen through here. Remember, if you're working with the template, that creates that shape for you. But before I pop the box together, I think it's worth just, it's easier now just to do it like this and just pop these bits of card on like so. Just use my kitchen towel to take off any excess glue, and you can see that gives me my inner pattern there. Now I'll go on ahead and do that for the other panels. Incidentally, if you drop a few bits of glue onto there as well, it'll just help to stick it and keep it firmly attached to the background paper. So I'll go on now, do the rest of these panels, and then come back, and then I'll stick in the insert that we've just made earlier on. I've gone on, I've put all the panels in there, as you can see. So I'll just remake this box now, like so. Put a little bit of glue on that edge there. Although we made up this box without anything in it, I just pulled it apart because I realised it's going to be 10 times easier to do it this way, like so. And that's not a bad little job. And you can see now we've got our, you can have the front of the card and our bad bit, as it were, towards the back there. You wouldn't really know. Then those flaps come down there, like so, and it's all coming together quite nicely. So the next thing to do is get the uprights in there. That's the one that we prepared earlier on. I've got here, I'll just put the glue on, a little bit more glue on there. So those tabs will now just fold back, and I'll just pop it into the box. So let's just make sure we've got the front of the box here, and I'm going to just slide the first one in there, and I just try and line it up with the base of the card about there and just come in a third. There's no real right or wrong. Hold it into position, if you can see that on the camera. I'm going to try and hold it into position with one of those. Hold that in position there and just slide the whole thing over. Make sure that lies flat and it will find its own position. There we go, like so. Just try and keep it a little bit more level if I can there, so you can see. So that's that first one there. And there we go, and those little tabs are just holding it in onto the side. Now I've gone on and done this one and put all my tabs in, and I've just lined one up there, half again, a little bit more, and just built it backwards like so. And I've popped pink in here and just decorated everything around the edge. And on this one I've kept the back clear. You could put a greetings message, but really that's almost surplus to requirements. You could just do 3 of them and work that way. Okie dokie, but that's the basics for making these, and you can see it's fairly straightforward. Well, I hope this tutorial's inspired you and given you the confidence to go on and make your own boxes. It really is quite straightforward. I think the hardest thing to do is just lining up, and I would practice your lining up to get these edges, you know, when you butt 2 together like so. Have a little practice before you do one for real. Otherwise you might find that, you know, like I've done here, you've made a little bit of a gaff. And also remember, words of wisdom, hold it down with 2 bits of tape, because what happened to me is it shifted a little bit as well. Apart from that, it really is, you know, quite straightforward to do. And you can, if you want to. You don't have to put these on if you don't want to, or use the technique that we've used here, just half and half as it were, and that's pretty simple as well. But all in all, whether you're using the single piece of paper method or you're using the template, you'll have fun with these. They look really lovely, and of course you can decorate them however you want to. And the popping mechanism can be added to it. The box is a little bit tiny. I don't really think it needs it at this size, but if you want to and you're working with the template, you can go on and use that mechanism there. As per, if you look at our standard popping box card, it's exactly the same. The only thing is it's a little bit smaller, a little bit harder to get your hands into, but not too bad if you've got smallish hands. And of course you'll need a smaller elastic band as well. Apart from that, it's pretty much plain sailing. But I think actually that they work just quite nicely. They almost naturally spring open anyway. Okay, well, I hope you have fun making these cards. I really, really love these. There's just so much you can do with them. We do a whole range of dies, and most of our dies, as you probably noticed now, are much smaller, more decorative, and they'll fit beautifully in these smaller areas as well. And of course, you can use your ribbons or your diamonds, etc. as well to really embellish to however you want. Okay, enjoy your crafting. Have great fun making these small popping boxes.